All right, so I am doing my anchor segment for the Expert Council show today, both in the audio and as a live stream. And it was an unannounced live stream. If you're like, Jack's live at like 11 o'clock and it said 12:30 or something, I just, whatever it defaulted to in StreamYard, I just thought people might want to have this as a break-off, one-off segment, especially if you know somebody who is a podcaster trying to build their podcast. They should know about what could potentially happen if they begin to develop traction and become successful. So the impetus for this is what just happened with Tim Pool, a very well-known, very successful podcaster, being named in a document from the DOJ about Russian election interference. And there's these fake Russian media companies, and some of these influencers have signed contracts with them, and it's a fake media company. They're not fake, okay? They're not fake. They're Russian-owned, but they're not fake. The problem is much bigger than Russia, which everybody wants to jump on. And I want to be very clear. The Tim Pool thing that has people buzzing right now a little bit on Twitter and shit, or X or whatever the hell they want to call it, is the reason for this discussion, because it's fresh in the open right now. And it's a teachable moment. But I am not picking on Tim Pool. I'm going to say some things about how this all works, and you might be like, well, that's negative for Tim. That's up to you to decide. I have no axe to grind with Tim Pool as a person, but I also know how you get where Tim Pool is as fast as you can, or as he did in this game. I know how you end up with a giant staff taking care of all your shit for you. And I know that it's not the organic thing that it's tried to be painted as. So I've been doing this 16 years. I've never had a huge social media presence. I have like 20,000 followers on X. I've got, I don't know what's on Facebook because I ain't used it in 5 years. Like 60,000 plus subs on YouTube, but that's nothing in this game, right? That's because I don't play the game. But I've been successful. I'm successful enough that when we look at download logs of my audio side, which goes out, everything from Spotify to iTunes and everything, over 200,000 downloads an episode is an average. Okay. And I started out in 2008 with exactly one person listening, me, myself, and I. And over the time of doing this, and just for the people on the live stream, I'm really not going to interact today. This is going to be like a 10, 15-minute segment and out. So I always like to interact with you guys. But again, I'm doing this for a reason that I'm putting it in a live video as well. I have been approached many times about getting involved in different levels of being networked with other people. So I want to start off with the most benign one and why I've always said no to it. The most benign one is a bunch of real podcasters who really are podcasters, and they're all themed in like self-sufficiency and reliance and prepping get together. So we're going to do the Prepper Podcasting Network or whatever. And then they just go out and try to get all of the best shows, and they ask you to join. And it's an honor when they ask you to join. And this is how I've always done that. If you ask me for absolutely nothing other than to syndicate my content, go forth and do so. And that's never what they want. They want the rights to, because they have to monetize what they're doing. And I understand, I'm just not going to do it. They want to be able to inject advertising from their sponsors into your network. And they want a commitment that you'll push the network versus your own show. I get why you're doing that. I don't have any problem with anybody doing that, but I don't need your help. And I bring more to the table than you bring to me when you ask me to do that. So I always go back to, if you want to syndicate my content, go ahead. The next one that is rather benign, there's a lot of independent producers out there that do radio show networks, and they have blocks of time on lesser AM channels. So, you wouldn't be in Dallas or Jacksonville or Philadelphia, but all of these like mid-tier cities, a lot of these AM stations, they sell their airspace that they don't have programming for. They'd rather sell the whole hour to somebody that wants to put a show on than try to sell 16 minutes of advertising into that hour. It's just easier. So they sell these big blocks off. So these guys put these AM networks together, and they'll come to somebody like me, and they'll make an offer to put your show that you're already doing on the radio, and they get the advertising rights, but as clear, concise breaks from your show. So they're not injecting an ad that somebody mistakes. Like, it's like when you listen to drive time radio, if you still do on AM radio, and all of a sudden some ad comes on about foundation repair, AC repair. You don't say to yourself, oh, Jack is telling me to use A1 foundation repair. You're like, it is what it is. It's just an ad. So that's not a problem. But here's what they always want. They say you don't have to do anything different except I need your show to be 44 minutes long. Exactly. And I need X number of, because they want to sell ads into the space, right? Or they'll say you can buy the whole hour and you buy it and then we'll put it out for you. And both of those I say no to because I don't want my show to have to be exactly 44 minutes long and I don't want to have to tailor it. So I've always told those people, if you'd like to syndicate my content, as long as you don't take away from it, you can. And they never want to because it won't fit. Those are both benign. I'm just unwilling to compromise my format to fit their needs. Okay. So I have nothing negative. Now let's talk about the kind of shit that went on with these fake Russian media companies. And I'll say this. If they're fake media companies, so is fucking CNN and Fox News and everybody else that does the same shit and the same model. They just use the TV instead of the internet. Okay. Like, they're all fake news. They're all fake media because they all have agendas that they're driving, which is why they're not real podcasts. And even real podcasts, when they go in there, they stop being real podcasts. Oh, it's in the format of a podcast. You can subscribe to it on Apple Podcasts or even Fountain to 2.0. They're not podcasts. They're now media productions. Right. And when they say they have disagreements between like the mainstream media and alternative podcast media, and every fucking talking head on Fox News and CNN has a podcast to go along with their show, you already should understand that that's bullshit. But what they are is amplifiers for each other. That's why you see a Tim Pool or Adam Carolla or whatever all the time on these mainstream media outlets that supposedly are competing with them. It's like this. Imagine you go to a concert. Rock concert out in the field, and they got all these big bank of speakers. There's Fox News, CNN, MSNBC. And your podcaster is your lead guitarist. And supposedly the lead guitarist disagrees with the speakers because they're just amplifying each other. So let me tell you what an offer to join one of these. And I don't care that it's Russia. Let me say this again. It doesn't matter that this particular deal was made between a Russian media company and Tim Pool's organization, okay? Doesn't matter. I've had offers like this from companies that I won't name, but they operate right here in the United States. They come to you and they say, we've paid attention to what you're doing, and you seem to be naturally talented at this. But look at you. Look at your background, Jack. You got a friggin' agorist flag for a background. You're podcasting with a cheap microphone for $100 and a webcam. You do all your own editing. Imagine what you could do if you were free of all that. What if you had a proper set with perfect lighting? What if all you had to do was show up and do your show and somebody else would do all your editing and all your research and book all your guests and make sure that everything works? What if you had co-hosts? What if you had multiple camera angles? I don't want to do it. You won't have to. That's the beauty of this. And here's the other thing. We kind of looked into you and we kind of figured out, that you're making pretty good money. But if you can disclose to us the exact amount you're making per year, what we'll do is we'll give you all this. And then we'll guarantee you your earnings in your first year will be 5 times what you're currently earning. We'll guarantee you in your second year that your earnings will be at least 10x what you're currently earning. And from that point forward, this is your percentage of the total revenue the show takes in that you will get, regardless of these expenses over here that we'll cover for you. So this is based on a pure gross revenue take in, and then you'll get this small percentage of that plus your guarantee as a salary. Now, if you're a podcaster and you're struggling to make it, this sounds too good to be true. And it is, because here's the other side of it. This is how that works. We're going to book all your guests. You know what that means? Well, we're going to tell you who you're talking to this week. And by the way, we're going to get you guests you'll never get on your own. Or maybe you'll get a guest like this once or twice or 3 times a year. We'll get you some guests like this every freaking week. If you want to do 5 shows a week, we'll give you a great guest 5 days a week. You don't have to talk to them or whatever. We'll give you a brief. All you got to do is look at it. We'll give you setup questions for them, and you just interview them. Oh, by the way, you get complete creative license. You're not giving up anything, Jack. If you want to tell the person you think they're a fucking ass clown, you go ahead and you tell them they're a fucking ass clown. right? You want to tell us that you think this guest is stupid, you can tell your audience, but you know what you are going to do? You're going to do the interview. Okay, wait a minute. So I have to take the guess you give me, you know? Well, you know, if there's a real problem with one particular guest here and there, we can talk about that. But overall, yeah, we're just going to set them up for you and you interview them. Just like, well, TV. Just like Fox News. You think fucking, you know, Laura Ingraham is out picking her fucking guests on Fox News? Or you think somebody say, Laura, this week you're interviewing these people on this day? That's what they do. So what then happens? Supposedly you have complete editorial control. But you do get final say on how everything's packaged, but you get no say on the ingredients. It's like telling somebody, here's flour, salt, and water, make anything you want out of it. Well, let me tell you what happens next, because you see this on my show all the time. I do a show on current events. What happens to the viewer count on a live stream on YouTube? It goes up through the fucking roof. If I start talking about the election, the economy, some bullshit going on in the news, the pandemic, whatever, woo! And then the next day I want to do a show on how to put together a food club. I don't want somebody vetted by a fucking talent agency. I want a person that actually fucking did it in Chattanooga, Tennessee, to tell you how you can go do it too. Oh no, we don't have time for that because you're interviewing this fucking politician. Or you're interviewing this hot viral girl that talked about spitting on a dick. And you're doing it. And here's your contract that says you're doing it, that comes along with the money we're paying you to do it. And God, it would suck if we had to terminate that contract, Jack, and all these people that work for you now didn't get a salary anymore. But go ahead and go it alone and see if you can get back to where we've put you. This is the fucking deal with the devil. This is the deal with the devil. In the words of Aaron Lewis, I sold my soul to the devil in LA. It's the same deal. You might as well just go try to break into mainstream media. It's all it is a migration of mainstream media into what we think of as alternative media. And all of these people that explode overnight, and they go from like one guy with a microphone, and I'm a real journalist, and all of a sudden they have like 8 people that are part of their show. I'm one of the most successful independent podcasters you can find. I'm not saying that to be egotistical. I'm just making a point. I can't afford that. And if I brought that many people in, not only would it fuck up what I have, I would have to, even without them, I would have to make the same kind of compromises to support all those people. Okay? Very few people can pull this off organically. I'll tell you who can. Adam Curry. Because he started the whole damn thing and he had the power of recognition from the very beginning. And he's developed a way with an audience that makes mine look tiny to figure out how to pay everybody out of production from the show. He's honestly the only one I know. I know people that are Joe Rogan, and Joe Rogan sold his whole soul to Spotify. Now, he had enough. He also came out of mainstream media. He had enough clout rate from the beginning that he got probably the best. I'm going to tell you right now, if Spotify came to me and said, the only thing we want you to do is agree to make your content, exclusively available on Spotify, but here's $50 million, everybody has a point where they're like, oh, I see. And if the deal that he has really is the deal that it looks like he has, I'd probably be like, hi, welcome to the Survival Podcast, exclusively available on Spotify. If I can still have the person from Tennessee come tell you how to start a food club and work right in front of the government and not have them be able to touch you, I'd have to have, but I'd consider that. But this shit and all of these podcasts, I'm telling you, the ones with a bunch of stupid strippers talking, all of it. All of these come from these media companies. All of these media deals get made the same way, and you do lose control. And so I don't care at all. I don't care a mouse fart that Tim Pool's media company was owned by a Russian consortium. I don't give a shit. I want you to know this is how this dirty-ass game is played. And this is why you cannot trust content that is created that way. It cannot be trusted. The minute you see when you see somebody pretend to be Joe Rogan that isn't Joe Rogan, you know that's what happened. You know that's what happened, because I'm going to tell you something. How do you do a show for 16 years independently? You have to make money. You have to make money or you can't do it. Okay. And no one does something consistently across time unless they don't need money and they love it, like a person who goes fishing every afternoon. Okay. Like a hobby, or they make money or they stop doing it. So when you see these people with the staff and somehow this, organic staff has the ability to be in that studio and fuck off with your hour and a half podcast and you're done. Like the prep, makeup, all that shit, like all of a sudden it's a full-time job. No one does that for free, nor should they. But when you go into that space, that's what you're doing. And I'm going to tell you, how many times have I had these offers straight up like the way I described it? We're a company. This is what we do. Here's what we'll do for you. We will make it happen. We will make you a bigger success than you can possibly comprehend. 3. Had a hell of a lot more of the stuff I started out with. Come be on AM radio, be in our network, whatever. And again, that's all benign. I'm just unwilling to bend it to fit. And I've always said, if you want the content, as long as I get full attribution and you don't infer that I'm endorsing something I'm not, go ahead. And it almost never happens. Okay. And that's benign. But these are sleazy offers. If you think about Oliver Anthony, and when the big music companies go, we'll give you 8 tour buses and all that, that's the same shit. It's the same shit. And how do you say no? When you really realize what this could mean to change your life, how do you say no? I'll tell you who says no. Someone who loves what they do so much and does well enough with it to never be needy will say no. Because I am so grateful for this audience. I am so grateful for this business that I have and this community that I built that I cannot sacrifice it because it would be like murdering a child of my own. Because if you're a real podcaster, and I mean a real podcaster, and you build something that was nothing one day and a little thing the next day, and grows into its own thing and eventually begins to develop in ways you don't even control anymore because your community on Telegram created a sub-community, they created a sub-community, and you're hearing back 3 years later about somebody whose life changed because of what you did. You didn't even know that they didn't know they were connected to you. They had to backtrack and figure it all out. That's like when your kid grows up, goes off to college, doesn't come home like a freaking retard talking about white privilege, but comes home and talks about how they just got a job working for some company developing this new technology. And you're like, oh my God, my child has grown into a man or a woman and they're making things happen on their own. That's what a podcast is for a real podcaster. And if you're listening to somebody that doesn't feel that way, there's only 2 possibilities. They haven't gotten there yet, so they don't understand it because their kid is still in diapers and it's still puking on their shoulder, and it's still shitting its pants, and it's still getting them up at 3 o'clock in the morning, because it's exactly how I started. 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, coming down the stairs, doing show notes to do a show in my car. Okay? It's exactly like raising an infant. It needs your attention constantly. So they're either in that stage, and they just haven't got there yet, or they're not real. Anyway, that's that. If you want to catch the rest of today's show, it is episode 3,553. 3,553. So I ain't bullshitting you. I've been doing this a while, and you should check out the show because we have some amazing expert counsel segments for you today.